It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2025, and it's time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 333 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, and I'm joined by my friend, a connoisseur of comedy. He's not just the first option, he is the best option, Mr. Lam Galuka, also known as Mr. Nice Guy 425. And for the next hour, we are going to cover topics ranging from news, history, trivia, lawsuits, and everything in between as they relate to our favorite pastime, which is Vigigaming. Lam, how you doing? Episode 333 on March 3rd. That's 3-3 for those of you who didn't catch on.
You know what? We couldn't have planned it unintentionally any better, Mac. It's awesome. I'm doing well. Other than like a little bit of a cold I've been battling, I'm good. So if you hear me sucking on a throat lozenge in the audio version of the pod, that is the reason why. But no, life is good, man. Nothing major to report other than just usual stuff. A good week.
Nice.
Good life.
Nice. Love a good week. Now, I immediately have to issue a retraction because I said it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's not Tuesday, it's
That's
Monday. Right. And this is the first of our Monday shows as we've shifted from our normal recording day of Tuesday to now recording on Mondays. But hopefully nothing else really changed, except for in the best of ways.
Yeah, Tuesdays had gotten too hectic, and it was mostly on my end. You know, multiple activities for me and the kids and just different things. Tuesday, not the best, but Mondays, pretty open. So I'm excited for this new trend.
Same. I'm looking forward to it, and we appreciate y'all sticking with us through this day shift. Hopefully it's not going to wind up being like daylight savings time shift type of thing that throws everybody off at work and on the commute to school and everything. I mean, daylight savings time, causes a lot of trouble. So hopefully this won't be like that. This is going to be smooth. It's going to be awesome. At least that's the wishful thinking. As for me, Mr. Nice Guy, nothing particularly interesting this last week. Did the sort of usual thing. Taught our class at the public library that we do from time to time. Worked on some cars. Had a good, quiet weekend. Read some books. Played some games. Watched some movies. Kind of the best sort of weekend, relaxed that you could hope for.
Now, the library class, is that the Dungeons and Dragons class that you're talking about?
It is. Yeah, it's the D&D 101 class that we've got a group of kids that are learning. It's a good time.
So I know that when you and I have played D&D with just like a random group, we did one time at my old neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We went to a card shop, and there was this one person in the group who was just trying to sabotage, right? Like, we're trying to sneak past guards, and he's throwing rocks at them. Do you get any of that with young kids?
You know, shockingly not. I think the problem was when we did that was a teenager.
Right.
You know, that's kind of how they always are. But no, the kids are actually, I think what's nice about it is that the way we've structured it is that each session of the class has different specific goals to focus on. And so when the kids kind of know what we're trying to practice, I feel like that keeps them, more goal-oriented in a way than if there was just nothing to do. I think that's both a strength and a weakness of the sort of just open, let's just play, type of model. But if you've got a good group, it can work just perfectly fine. So, but yeah. Kids do great. I don't find that they try to throw rocks at guards. But also, early on, we do a lot of hey, the point is to be collaborative and to not, you might want to have your moment in the sun, but you should always be trying to share it with somebody else. Spotlights are lonely when they're only on you, and you'll find it's a lot more fun if you always try and involve the other players and the other characters in the moment. Anyway, I could go on. As a matter of fact, I do go on for hours about this subject, hours at a time. But this is not a D&D class podcast. This is a video game podcast, and I'm out of the
That is
loop.
right. You're good. So let's do what we do best, Mac, and hop right up in that gaming news. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, take us away, Mr. Nice Guy. What's new in Vigigaming?
So much, and thank you everyone for tuning into episode 333. Mac, we're 33.3% of the way to 1,000 episodes, which is awesome.
Whoa.
How old will we be when that happens? I'm not even going to think about it. With one episode a week, 52 weeks in a year, we'll figure that math out later. Well, Mac, first news story comes from Kotaku.com, written by Zach Zweisen. We're big into talking about game preservation on the pod, and that is what this topic is about. Here's what Zach writes. Nintendo is doing something the company has never done before. Next month, it will remove a retro game from the Nintendo Switch Online's classic catalog. Since launching the Nintendo Switch Online Classic service in 2018, the company behind Mario has never removed a game. Instead, it's slowly built up a decently sized library of first and third-party retro games from across multiple console libraries. However, subscribers in Japan will be losing a retro game in March, even if they have already downloaded it. On February 27th, they quietly announced that Super Famicom game Super Formation Soccer will be removed from the service on March 28th. Mac, this is interesting because the article goes on to argue that this is why we need Virtual Console. And I thought that was super interesting because I don't feel like Virtual Console is the solution. What are your thoughts about Nintendo removing this game from their online service? First time they have ever done this, so somewhat historic. And what do you think about Virtual Console, where you can purchase and download a digital copy, being the solution? I could be wrong. What do you think?
Categorically, I can say I'm against it.
Against which part?
The removing of it.
Oh, the removing of it from online? Okay.
You know, who knows what the reasons could be? Like, for example, did they have an existing licensing deal that they had to honor? So for licensing reasons, they had to take it off? Seems rather unlikely. It's possible that they're removing it so that they can do a thing where they release like a new bundle that includes it and increases that value. But I mean, who knows? Yeah, I think any reason to remove it isn't a good reason. But on the subject of the Virtual Console, you know, the Virtual Console was just a Nintendo approved emulator. So I do think we've seen a lot that the only way to make sure that that something is preserved is a distributed network of people holding on to the files rather than them being held in just one single place. So I mean, and of course, you know, if you've got an emulator for offline play, then yeah, downloading it and keeping it, that keeps it.
Yeah, so I mostly agree with you. I'm not against them removing it, because while this is the first time that Nintendo has done something like this, it's not the first time that something like this has been done. Game Pass constantly cycles games in and out of their catalog, and PlayStation, I believe, does the same thing with their service. So the idea of cycling games in and out is kind of a common thing. I think the issue here is that Nintendo has never done it, and that these are retro games that are much less hard to find. Xbox Game Pass has a lot of modern stuff where it's kind of like, okay, great, it's gone, it's here. I could go to GameStop and buy that for $15-$20. But some of these retro games are harder to find.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the rub, where it's like, you know, yeah, Game Pass rotates them on and off, but that's just you've got this for free for a little while. Now maybe you have to buy it. Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's like a copy of the pack-in title over in Japan, and you can get a copy of Super Formation Soccer, you know, at any secondhand store. Although I somehow doubt it. I don't know. I really don't know.
You know, I also wonder how much of this is, you know, quote-unquote manufactured outrage.
Or counterpoint, manufactured scarcity.
That's true. That could be it, too. But I wonder how many people are super disappointed that they can no longer play this game, right? It's one of those situations where once I realize something is leaving, I'm a little bit more disappointed, even if it's not something that I was really using that much. So this game, like, it's not like it's Super Mario Brothers, you know, or Mario Kart. They're taking it off. It's a lesser known game. But regardless, buy physical. That solves it. So next news story, Mac. And this one is also kind of Nintendo related. on Kotaku, also by Zach Wise, and he's killing it with relevant topics recently. This was actually published a little while back, but it's something that we want to talk about. You can now search 1,500 plus old game magazines online using this free tool. Here's what Zach writes. While the video game industry is huge and has been around for decades, studying its history is tricky due to a lack of tools and resources as well as legal headaches. But the Video Game History Foundation has launched a new free website that will let you dig through decades-old magazines. Mac, did you already know about this?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Please keep going, though, because it bears shouting from the rooftops.
Nice. Press kits, advertisements, and more. And the plan is to grow this tool with more content in the future to make it easier than ever to look back at video game history. On January 30th, the VGHF announced that its long-in-development digital library was now live for everyone to use. The nonprofit organization has been working on it since 2017, collecting development documents, behind-the-scenes content, and rare video game magazines, and now, after a lot of hard work, it's open and public, and it's awesome. My question for you is not what you think about this. I think we're in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
How is Nintendo not trying to get this taken down? Seriously.
Real talk, I would be surprised if they weren't. I just wonder how long it'll be before they're successful. Who knows? Maybe maybe the energy that they've got their lawyers tied up with Pal World stuff, and so they don't have time yet to get at the History Foundation. Maybe they've got bigger fish to fry. I know that they certainly trotted everybody out a few months ago to stop the patent office from extending the circumvention of DRM to extend to people who were trying to put up libraries specifically for studying video game history. So I mean, they might just be a little bit too busy, but if there is any way possible for them to object, I think it's only a matter of time. So I'm not saying go and download a copy of all of this documentation for yourself, but yeah, all it takes is Nintendo looking at it crosswise, and then suddenly it's gone for who knows how long.
Well, it's interesting, man, because Nintendo Power's somewhat hard to find and somewhat expensive. So to me, this is a really good thing.
There was a brief moment in time where the Internet Archive had all of the Nintendo Power back issues of the Nintendo Power magazine up available for you, and then, Nintendo came in and took it down.
And it's one of those things where it's just nice to be able to read them. I never had Nintendo Power as a kid.
Me neither. I just gazed at it longingly on the magazine rack, being like, oh my gosh, if only I could get, I mean, what was it back in the day? Was it like $15 or something?
A year, maybe.
Yeah.
Or per, like it probably wasn't crazy expensive.
No, but like we had no money. We were so poor,
I got you.
Mom.
I understand.
We were so
I understand.
poor.
And like I remember reading them at the library, or just seeing them different places. And my parents just were not into video games. Like my dad and mom bought us an NES back in the day. And my dad to this day is like, I hate video games. Like I hate that we got you into video games, jokingly. So Nintendo Power was definitely not happening. So anyway, point being, it's cool to be able to go back and live that era, right? See the study guides, the strategy guides, all the cool stuff that was there. Sometimes I wonder back if Nintendo gets ideas for future content based on moves that the industry is making. In other words, they take something like this down and then release their own version of it.
I mean, you could certainly draw a line between a few things. Like there was the Super Mario 3D.
Boom.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, oh gosh, what's the other one I was thinking of? Another Metroid 2 remake. And then they released their thing. I think it was couple years after that came out. So yeah, no, I would not be surprised if Nintendo is just like, this is popular. Let's take it down, release our own. People will forget that we're the jerk faces who ruined it before, and it's worked out pretty well for them so far.
Yep. Well, cool. One more news story, Mac, and this relates to something that we discussed on the last episode. This is about Space Marine 2, a game that I picked up last year that I thoroughly enjoyed. Dev apologizes to players, says the game won't become a live service title. This is by Blair Marnell on GameSpot.com. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 was a hit out of the gate last fall, but that doesn't mean its most devoted players love everything about it. Many fans are especially vocal against the idea of it becoming a live service game, especially after Focus Entertainment and developer Saber Interactive introduced community events seemingly as the only way to get desirable items. Mac, long story short, people are upset that there was time-based content in this game. There were certain cosmetic items that you could only get for a limited time, and they were worried that the game would become a live service title. Now, we talked last week about if we prefer games that last for a long time simply because the gameplay is great and there's a community like a Counter-Strike, or if we prefer games like World of Warcraft, where they're continually innovating and adding new content. I find it super interesting that a community would not want a game that is a multiplayer title to become a live service title. Live service almost guarantees that your game would last for longer. So I'm all for that. Would you agree or would you disagree?
I would disagree because I don't know as a title going live service necessarily ensures the longevity of it. I know that we've got a couple of good examples of stuff that has lasted a long time, like you already mentioned, the chief case, World of Warcraft. But I think a lot more people are seeing these titles that wind up going, they wind up going from normal purchase, product style, and then they go live service or free to play. And then they wind up getting shut down and going away. And I think that there's possibly more concern that when you shift from we paid this, we bought a copy, and now it's gone to live service, I think it feels slippery slopey to gamers. And they've been burned a lot lately, so I can kind of understand.
Yeah.
But like you said, it can have some advantages as well.
I would say the counterpoint to that is, well, it certainly doesn't guarantee that it will become a long-lasting title. Mm-hmm. But what it does do is it gives it a better chance. Because gamers, we have such short attention spans, right? Mm-hmm. I look at Black Ops 6. I look at the continuous content that they're adding in there. They have Ninja Turtle skins in the game. They're constantly adding new maps. If you just put out a base game and don't continually improve upon it and give people new content, then they will move on to the next thing. And I think that one of the ways that you can continue to improve your game and continue to have a source of revenue is to make it a live service title. Especially something that in my mind is not quite as mainstream, like a Space Marine 2. I think that for that community to stay strong, it would probably help to have a live service model. But I get it. They don't want that. That's okay.
And who knows? Maybe it will ensure longevity. Maybe it won't. Was the game... I mean, I know nothing about Space Marine 2, but it sounds like it's an online... by the nature of its creation, it's not like it had an offline single-player mode.
It does.
It does. Oh, okay. So where's the... But it also has an online multiplayer
100%.
mode.
Yeah. Third-person shooter, Gears of War type of multiplayer.
Gotcha. Well, there are definitely situations where, where the single player goes offline the same as the online multiplayer. Like, for example, The Crew last year, where... and I think maybe we're just starting to see and be ready, and we're inclined to reject those moves. So maybe that's it. Maybe we're just, as gamers, maybe we're just getting too burned.
We'll have to see. Well, shout out to Space Marine 2. Fantastic game. That has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to the past. We've seen what's going on around now. Let's look in weeks before. And Mr. Nice Guy, I've got some titles that I know I love, and I think maybe you do as well.
What are they?
First one, though, I have to ask, Monster Hunter Wilds. Am I getting ahead of myself?
No, you're not. It just came out.
Uh-huh.
You're not getting ahead of yourself.
Okay. I don't know if this necessarily belongs in a video game history bit, but have you had a chance yet?
I haven't yet, man. I've been so busy.
Okay.
Had a cold this weekend, but I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, those of you keep a lookout for it. All right, so let's turn to proper history. Today, in 2017, the launch of the Nintendo Switch in the United States, and of course most of the world as well. Bringing with it, of course, we've got Breath of the Wild and so many excellent Nintendo Switch experiences. obviously, Mr. Nice Guy, we were in probably our second year of this show
Yep.
as it
Yep.
currently stands as Two Nerds in a Pod, back when the Nintendo Switch launched. And I know we had a lot of feelings about it then. Obviously, I still have not gotten on the Switch train, even though I did get a chance to play some of the games, such as Breath of the Wild, and loved those experiences. But objectively, I think it's fair to say that the Nintendo Switch is why we probably have my favorite current handheld, which is the Steam Deck. And Nintendo did show very well that the handheld market for solid gaming experiences was alive and well, not just small mobile experiences. And I think that's something worth celebrating and acknowledging. Lom, anything you want to say about the Switch?
You know what? It was a game changer for me because at the time it was the first hybrid where you could play it on the TV, but you could also play it handheld without some type of jerry rigging that you had to do with like the Nintendo Game Boy Advance or something like that. So to me it was a game changer because I could take it to work, I could play it at lunch, and I could have those same experiences, not a watered down experience, Mac, of like a Link's Awakening. I could have a Breath of the Wild experience in the palm of my hand, and to me that was a game changer. The one thing I will say that's bittersweet about the Switch is I liked the content that Nintendo would put out on their dedicated handhelds, and I don't think that we will ever get that type of content again because I think they will always have a hybrid.
Yeah, they're not going to split their market, as it were, and they're going to focus on a hybrid console forever. And I don't know, because we don't know what we are missing out on because that alternate universe doesn't exist. But I hear you, and I do kind of wonder what the new Nintendo DS XL5 or what have you would have looked like, what features it would have brought to the table if it had existed.
Well, and I think that's part of why like the Vita and the PSP and the 3DS were so revolutionary. The 3DS in particular, because the idea of playing Mario Kart online in the palm of your hand was just unheard of. And now it's the norm.
Yeah. Well, mad respect to all the handheld consoles that came before, but it was this week that we had the Nintendo Switch. A couple of other items just to throw out there, Mr. Nice Guy. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the launching in 2010 for the Nintendo Wii of Mega Man 10, flanked as I am by Mega Man. Also, 2005 for the Xbox, Republic Commando was a game that I loved. It was great. It kind of I don't remember exactly what the chronology was, but I'm pretty sure that Republic Commando came out before Star Wars Clone Wars. But in it, you were basically a fire team, a small squad of clone commando troops for the Galactic Republic. You went on missions. You would do this sort of like squad command things where you would have, you would direct your guys in a situation. It was really, really fun, and it was the first sort of, I guess you would say, single player, but yet fire team experience that I ever had, not being the biggest person into shooters. And so it very much stands out for me. Of course, a lot of original Xbox games do. It was a good time. Anyway, loved Republic Commando. A good experience that I think in a lot of ways set a sort of tone. Like, we started to get a lot more kind of gritty fire team experiences released after it. Who knows if that was just, similar thinking, or if they were taking a note out of Republic Commando's book. But Nice Guy, I think I saw a quizzical look when I said Republic Commando, so I take it this isn't one you've heard of before.
I know nothing about it, and I had no idea on the dates these were released, so I'm glad you didn't quiz me.
No, the quiz comes later for Nerdflex, y'all. Remember, get those trivia questions in.
That's right.
Well, and then last but most certainly not least, another Star Wars game, but released in 1995 for the PC, Star Wars Dark Forces. Okay, so in the Mac household, Games like Doom, not exactly permitted.
Like as a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid,
Yeah,
you're talking about. Okay.
exactly. As a youth, as a young whippersnapper, Doom right out. Way too much demonic themes in that game for that to be permitted. Later levels of Wolfenstein 3D as well. Ugh. But Star Wars Dark Forces, I mean, that's an FPS. It feels very, very Doom-like. As a matter of fact, you would be forgiven for thinking that it was basically the Doom engine with Star Wars clothing on it, because it feels just so very much the same. Now, that's not actually the case, because one interesting thing about the engine that they used for Dark Forces was that it was an engine, they called it the Jedi engine. I hope you can hear my eye rolling from here. But the thing is that the Doom engine did not allow for you to have rooms overlapping. So, like, for example, Lom, your bedroom might overlap the living room, but on the next floor, right?
Sure.
In Doom, you couldn't do that because you could have variable ceiling heights and you could like go up a ramp or whatever, but you never had another room, another floor / ceiling above where you were previously. It just didn't have that sort of, capability, but the engine that they used for Dark Forces absolutely did. And so that was good. Now, of course, you didn't go flying around, which I love a good flight sim, but it was FPS. It was fun, and it's a special place in my heart because it was kind of permissible to play that game because hey, it was Star Wars. It's not that bad. Evil Empire.
Right.
Yeah, and that has been gaming history for us.
Nice. Well, Mac, it's time for our topic of the week, and as a quick point of announcement, next week we will be back at it with Indie Game of the Week. So if you're looking for those indie game recommendations, be sure to tune in because we'll be back doing that. Mac, this news story for the topic of the week comes from IGN.com. This is a segment for y'all just to know where we talk about our things that are relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it. So that's what we're going to do here. This is written by Vicky Blake on IGN.com. Steam, the most popular digital game distributor for PC players, has once again broken its own concurrent user record, reaching 40 million players for the first time. Over the weekend, which just happened to coincide with Monster Hunter Wilds launch on Friday, February 28th, Steam logged 40,270,997 simultaneous players, breaking its previous record of 39.9 million set in February of this year. In fact, according to SteamDB, Steam's concurrent record, seen by some as a way of measuring the success of Valve's digital platform, has been broken almost every single month since May of 2024. With the concurrent peak rising from 35.5 million to 40.2 over 6 months. My question for you, Mac, and my question for the chat. I guess to start off, is Steam your favorite place to play? And if so, why?
Okay. Is it my favorite place to play? Yeah, I suppose. But at the end of the day, I think it's just that way because that's where I have. If there was another place, if I had more good old games that launch independently of a secondary platform, I would be more on top of that. I think Steam just by default, because it is PC gaming, but I have no real I have no real affiliation for the fact that it's Steam, especially because Steam does not really have that many exclusives, so it's not like in the same vein as a console. I don't have to love it because it's the only place I can experience a game, so is it my favorite? Yeah, no, it's not my favorite. I've never thought about it before, Mr. Nice Guy.
Well, I'll tell you, my favorite place to play is not Steam. I love Steam, but my favorite place to play is the PlayStation Network, and a big part of why is simply because it's one of the places that I have been the longest. And I have a good network of friends on there on my friends list. And I have a ton of games built up on the library from the time where they gave out digital games, like at least 2 a month, every month for several years. And I've had the PlayStation Plus. And then on the PlayStation 5, a big part of it is the controller. It is just an amazing controller with haptic feedback. And it has a mic built in. To me, the PlayStation is my favorite place to play But I also understand that Steam, in some ways, is more accessible. You don't necessarily have to have the best PC to play on Steam. You just have to have a reasonable PC. And so people who maybe have a casual PC, they can play casual games on there. People who want much more intense experiences, like a Monster Hunter Wilds, can have a much better PC and they can play on there. And then hardcores like us can play on the Steam Deck. But my second question for you, Mac, is why do you think that Steam continues to break records in terms of concurrent users? Is it just a timing thing? I believe that it has to be that they're getting more market share or they're getting more people playing. It's not just a coincidence in my mind.
You know, there is a lot to be said about momentum, right? Steam was there near the beginning of PC gaming. When there was a, start to game platform in PC gaming, Steam was there making it happen right from the outset. So, they're the oldest. I feel much the same way about, and I'm, okay, maybe I'll cut this in post, but the Joe Rogan podcast, I don't think anything that he does is particularly enjoyable programming, but he's got the most listeners, and I think it's entirely a function of momentum and, a couple other things, but...
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I think it's much the same way.
Well, and here's the thing, to stick with that Joe Rogan analogy, I don't listen to Joe Rogan. There was a time when I did, but I would listen to him selectively, and it would be based on who the guest was going to be. Oh, you got Dave Chappelle on there? I want to hear what he has to say. I want to hear that. You have Neil deGrasse Tyson? That might be kind of an interesting listen. It wasn't listening for Joe, but I was listening for the people that he was bringing on, and I think that Steam is a similar thing. I don't think that they have the best platform by any stretch. The leveling system in terms of your progress over time is okay. They give out random stickers, great, but they do have something for everyone. And with the exception of some exclusives like a Mario or a Zelda, they have a lot of stuff on there that has been exclusive other places previously. They have Halo Master Chief Collection. They have Halo Infinite. They have Ratchet and Clank now. They have God of War. They have The Last of Us, right? So whereas before you had to pick, do I want Nintendo, do I want Xbox, do I want PlayStation, or do I have deep enough pockets to get all three? Steam in some ways gives you access to all three of those consoles in a nice package, and if you have a Steam Deck, you're good to go.
Like Ishmobile, I think is very much thinking on the same lanes as us. Flexibility is huge. I can play anywhere: Steam, desktop, laptop, or Steam Deck. And it's the flexibility is great. And like you said, Nice Guy, the flexibility of not having to have the best thing. As Uncle Ruckus is saying in the chat, he's got a 4090 for his GPU, and it runs all right
baller.
on Monster Hunter Wilds and things like that. So, there's a whole bunch of good pluses to it, and I like it. And so it is the position, you heard it here, folks. Mr. Nice Guy's position is that Steam is the Joe Rogan of platforms, and you can quote him on that.
Yeah, you can quote me on that. The other thing I'll say about Steam, just super quickly, dude, is I know when there is a Steam sale. I don't necessarily know when there is a PlayStation sale.
Yeah, Steam does a great job of letting you know that there are sales on. That is one thing I think it does better than any place else.
There's literally subreddits dedicated to Steam deals. I don't know if it's the same thing for PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo, but it's just super convenient to have a library that's built like that. And then the last thing I'll say is they have really great demo fests as well that bring people in. So shout out to Steam and congrats on your success.
Yeah.
That has been our topic of the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off the ground. And Mr. Nice Guy, it wasn't until you started just barely talking about the accessibility behind, Steam that I was on the fence about what crowdfunding project we were going to talk about tonight.
Really?
But
okay.
Yeah, well, and for those of you who don't listen each week, Lom and I, we don't prep each other with the talking points first. You're getting our unfiltered, thoughts as we're hearing them for the first time, same as you. But this one, a crowdfunding project called Peakdo 7, I think is the name that it's going for. Either way, this is a handheld, right? And the idea behind it is that it doesn't have like its own processing unit. It is just a touch screen, a display, and a controller sort of all in one, meant to wirelessly stream what you're playing on other consoles or other things, take it into a handheld, a more portable environment in the local area network, and be able to play with zero latency, air quotes. I will say, zero latency is something you should always be suspicious of whenever people claim that, because they're usually wrong. Anyway, let me throw out some quick figures. We've got the goal for this. It's out of Vancouver, Canada. The goal for this project was $2,769. Which is 4,000 Canadian. And what they're asking for one of these guys in the super early bird, you can get these in 60 hertz or 120 hertz, depending upon how you want to go. For a 60 hertz, you're looking at about $270 US to back for one of those, or the 120 hertz, closer to 320, depending upon conversion rates, US for that. And the delivery date that they're hoping to get these out the door are middle of this year, June 2025. All right, so just some quick things. One other thing to sort of understand what they're going for with this, the Picto 7-inch screen, of course, is where that 7 comes from. And they are looking at, you have sort of this HDMI wireless dongle to plug into something and then shoot it to your handheld device. It does have a battery, obviously, that would need to be recharged every so often, but you would be in for a seemingly reasonable, I'm trying to find, I had the spec pulled up here, but I have since lost it, but they did spec a certain number of hours on the 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and can't find that. Oh well, I'm not going to spend too frightfully long on that, on the runtime there. But yeah, so Mr. Nice Guy, any initial thoughts?
I mean, I don't really have a lot that's positive to say. This is completely derivative of so many other things that exist.
Indeed.
So with the Steam Deck, you can download an app called Chiaki that will allow you to play your PlayStation remotely.
But is it zero latency, dude?
It's pretty dang good, at least in my experience. It's not zero latency though, but it's really good.
Well, but neither is this. So,
Right.
you know, I don't think we need to hold anything up to perfection.
And I mean, there's an app on Steam called XPlay. Or XB Play that allows you to play your Xbox remotely. There's ways of doing it other ways. There's the PlayStation Portal that allows you to play remotely. I mean, I guess I'm just very skeptical about any type of hardware like this that is on Kickstarter. There's so much potential for a rug pull. And there's literally nothing unique about this. That's my thoughts.
But Mr. Nice Guy, don't you want to have something that will do the PlayStation Portal treatment, but for your Xbox or for your, I mean, not Switch.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, really, just Xbox.
Well, once again, I could pay $7 for XB Play on Steam, and people can fact check me on this if you're looking it up. It's called XB Play. I think it's $6.99, and it does exactly this. It allows you to play your Xbox remotely on your Steam Deck or on another device. So, nope, I think I'm good.
So this does keep to a somewhat history that we have sort of a love-hate relationship with some of the hardware bits on Kickstarter. But this, I think I did set it up. I wasn't sure about it, but we were talking about accessibility. And yeah, it doesn't bring anything new to the table. Now, obviously, we wish everybody the best of luck. It's already been funded, so there are at least 14 backers for it. But the funding goal for a hardware thing to be so low as just a few $1,000s.
Exactly.
That 14 backers can make it happen. That's not enough units in order to make a production run. It just plain isn't. And so the goal way too low in order to actually pay for the production line that they're going to need to produce a set of these. So unless, of course, they've got alternative backing, some funding somewhere else that's going to make sure that it happens, and this is really just funding in the sense of a pre-sale, basically, to generate hype, yeah. I mean, I hope that these people get the units that they paid for upon the completion of it. But yeah, I, like you, Mr. Nice Guy, I'll take an app and I'll play it from my Steam Deck or something like that, and I think that'll be good enough for me.
Yeah, shout out to them for trying to do something cool. But I hate to crap all over it, but there's just nothing innovative, right? Like businesses and hardware and things like this need to either fit a niche or solve a problem, and this one doesn't really do either. I kick it.
And a kick from me as well, and so far it's kicks in the chat.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into Kick or Kickstart. Now it's time for Nerd Flex. A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the hosts. Sometimes you do. Often you do not. So if you're here live, you have a job to do. It's completely optional, but if you want to, put a multiple choice gaming-related question in the chat. Mac and I will use nothing but our noggins to try to answer it. And Mac, we're going to start with a question from the test bank. This is a Zelda question.
Ooh.
What is the name of the mouthy black beast in Skyward Sword? What is the name of the mouthy black beast in Skyward Sword?
Oh, gosh.
Have you played Skyward Sword?
I have played Skyward Sword, and I beat it. I played it on the Wii. I actually have a copy for the Wii. What's the other one? Twilight Princess?
Yeah.
Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. I walked into a secondhand store, and I bought a copy of Twilight Princess, of
Skyward
Sword, and inside the box was a Twilight Princess Wii game disc. And so I had Twilight Princess already, and then I had to buy another copy of Skyward Sword so that I had a copy of Skyward Sword. So anyway, I've got 2 cases for Skyward Sword, but one of each, and I have played both, but I can't think of it. That's me just trying to desperately stall for time. But yeah, no idea.
I haven't played Skyward Sword, so I have no idea. The mouthy black beast. It's going to be something cutesy because it's a Nintendo game.
Yeah, like Gibdo or something.
Gibdo it is. Let's see what the actual answer is. The Imprisoned. It actually wasn't something cutesy. It was a very straightforward, not made-up name.
Egg on my face.
That's okay. Well, let's keep going. Mac, this one just popped up. This is one we both know the answer to.
Okay.
These are randomized, but here's the question. In Portal, what is the cake?
Well, the cake is a lie. Obviously.
The cake is a lie. I think that's the answer that they're probably looking for. When do you think we get Portal 3, dude?
Well, I mean, it could be kind of like the curse of the composers, like the 6th Symphony curse or whatever. And we never get it because people will die long before then. So yeah, I don't know. I would love to have it though. I mean, technically, do you think Half-Life Alyx was? Oh, sorry, that was Half-Life,
yeah, that's Half-Life,
not Portal.
But I will say this: there's been a lot of Portal side projects that were made. We saw that one at E3 several years ago. They were working on with the PlayStation Move. I don't know if it ever came out, but also I believe there's like a Portal VR mod, and it may be a fan-made thing, but maybe we just gotta see satisfied with fan-made stuff. The cake is indeed a lie, Max. So we are 1 for 2 on our questions this week. Here is one that is a JRPG question, and I do not know a lot about JRPGs.
Woo.
We'll have to call my friend who's coming to Midwest Gaming Classic with us. He knows a lot about that. What RPG series contains the Journey of the Cursed King or the Hand of the Heavenly Bride?
Oh, this would be Dragon Quest?
Is it Dragon Quest? Okay.
I think so. I think it's Dragon Quest, the Cursed King. I think that one's like number 8 or something like that. Maybe number 7.
Okay, and it is indeed Dragon Quest. I flipped it because I assumed you were either right or we weren't going to get it.
Woo!
So because of Mac, and I knew the Portal one, but mostly because of Mac, we're 2 for 3 this week.
No. Team effort as always.
And that has been Nerdflex, y'all.
All right, well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
I'm not a lawyer, as you know, and I just kind of play one here on a podcast, but you and I've been in the gaming scene for a long time.
We have.
I remember a couple of scrappy young men back at E3 2012 at a red carpet reveal.
I remember this.
Do you remember the device that we were there, that was at the red carpet? Yeah.
Yeah, it was called the WikiPad.
Yeah.
I do
Mr.
remember.
Nice Guy. Those were good times.
I remember a lot of things about that day. It was a fun day.
It was a fun day. It was a long day. It was a good day. But one very interesting thing, and bears mentioning because, of course, this is the anniversary of the Nintendo Switch launch, is that after the Switch launched, those folks, the people who did that WikiPad thing, they changed their company name was GameVice. They actually filed a lawsuit to try and prevent sales of the Nintendo Switch in the US because they claimed that the Switch infringed on their patents. Now, initially, they started off by being like, hey, we've got these patents on a basically tablet that has controllers that attach to it. And so you either need to pay up or stop selling Nintendo Switch units. Now, they went ahead and they started that, then they voluntarily dismissed that, and then they renewed it after a couple of months because they also had another set of patents related to these controllers that would attach to phones, like mobile phones for gaming and the like. And they thought, you know what, our case is probably stronger this way. And so then they started that. But anyway, I go all about this because this is a cautionary tale. We already know the ending. The Nintendo Switch was hugely popular. It was not prevented from sales in the United States. And if Nintendo had to pay money to some little upstart of a company, we probably all would have heard about it. No. This is not a cautionary tale about you don't go up against a Nintendo. This is a cautionary tale about how be careful what you sue with in court, because sometimes the patent office in the U.S. will grant patents for things that they shouldn't have, right? And boy, do I have axes to grind there. But I won't get us too far off track, because whenever you are involved in an intellectual property suit, whether that is copyright, trademark, or patent suits, you have the very real possibility of losing your intellectual property. And it may very well be that this is the only field where suing to protect your property can result in you losing those property rights. In the case specifically of patents, it would hinge on whether or not there was novelty, inventiveness, non-obviousness, insufficiency, or bad faith in your application. And during the course of this particular suit, where they were like, hey, Nintendo owes us money because we have the patents on this, the courts very much found they were like, hey, these types of things are pretty obvious things. You weren't the first to do them. Sure, you've got patents on them, but really, if they had been thinking about it at the time, they wouldn't have granted it to you. And so GameVice lost those patents and lost their attempt to either prevent the sales of the Nintendo Switch or to get their cut. That is the legalese tale. That is the cautionary tale of WikiPad, of GameVice, and of them going up against Nintendo. And Mr. Nice Guy, I was thinking about it, and this was, of course, many years when we went to go there. This was many years before we had started this show in its current iteration as Two Nerds in a Pod. But I do very fondly remember that red carpet and the WikiPad. And, I would have never guessed at the time that they would have been trying to go up against the Nintendo Switch in 2017. But isn't it interesting how things play out?
It's interesting. Yeah, it is, man. I remember the founder, I just Googled him, James Bauer, being very, very giving of his time. Like, I remember you interviewed him.
Yeah.
And he was just like a very, very chill guy. And I remember we were like riding up in the elevator and he was in there, and he was like, "Where you guys going?" I was like, "Oh, we're going to this party up there," and he was like, "What party?" And I was like, "The WikiPad." And it was funny because it was like he was like testing us, like, do people actually know like what this event is for? And it was a really, really good event, and it was cool to see. So
Yeah.
part of gaming history that we experienced.
Yeah.
Good times. Well, that has been Legalese. And hey, it's time to go. But before we do, we want to thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us on our new night, which is Monday nights going forward. And we want to talk about what we've been watching and what we have been playing, where we talk about just that. I've explained it 332 times. If you're here live, let us know what you've been watching and playing. Mac, what you been into?
Well, what I've been into this last week is, of course, playing some D&D, played some GURPS, played a little bit of everything. There is a game I've been playing that we'll talk about next time in our indie game of the week. As for watching, oh gosh, what did I watch? It just suddenly flew out. But I'll tell you what I'm going to be watching very soon.
What? Tell us.
That's this, Dungeons & Dragons Wrath of the Dragon God. So, you're probably familiar with the cinematic masterpiece that is Dungeons & Dragons, released in the year 2000. But did you know that there was not one, but two direct-to-DVD sequel movies? And this is sequel the first.
Nice.
And I'm going to see if I can't track down. So far, the only place I can find a actual DVD copy of the third one is importing it from Germany. That's, that defaults to German playing, and then there's also an English track because it was done English. But that's the only place that I can find a DVD copy, because I think it was not good and not well received. But you know what? I've got to complete the trilogy, so I'm in for an adventure. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to lately. How about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
Dude, I've been not playing a ton, to be honest with you. Just been busy and doing other stuff. I make a point of playing some Analog Pocket stuff almost every week, just because it's such a great console. So I played Mario Land, as usual, one of my favorite Game Boy games of all time. And then doing some Contractors in VR. Did a little Call of Duty Black Ops 6, but that's it. Nothing new. And then, of course, the game that we talked about, that we will talk about next week. As far as watching and reading, I've been reading the Invincible Compendium, which I bought a long time ago and just never got through all of it. So I'm rereading it, and then I'll probably go through and watch season 3.
So, question for you. How closely, now that you've seen the first 2 seasons of the TV show, how closely are those seasons, or is that following the comics, the first 2 seasons?
I mean, it's hard for me to say that any of those shows follow the comics closely, simply because it's so compressed. Right? Like, these compendiums are a couple thousand pages, and the seasons are, I forget how many episodes. So there's not like a ton of deviation, but there's stuff that's left out, I guess would be the best way to put it. So
Gotcha.
yeah, but it's good. Probably not as much deviation as The Walking Dead. If you had read those comics, you'd say, oh, wow, Negan kills so-and-so instead of so-and-so, and it's completely different. And then, of course, they had to tone that show down quite a bit for TV. So, but anyway, yeah. And as far as watching some Marvel stuff with the family.
Gotcha. On that Marvel rewatch.
On that rewatch, what are people into in the chat, Mac?
All right. Well, Flaming Phoenix has been watching How I Met Your Mother and has been playing Destiny 2, Deadlock, the Broken Shell demo. Oh, that's the one we talked about last time. Nice Day for Fishing demo, Apex Legend, and playing D&D. Oh, yes, Steam Next Fest is on, so I suspect a lot of people are playing
Is it
demos.
still going, or did it end? Is it still going?
I think it's still going till the 5th, I want to say.
Oh.
But if it hasn't ended now, it's going to be ending soon. And Ishmael's been watching Red Planet, Simpsons, and Dairy Girls. Excellent show. And has been playing Ocarina of Time Randomizer, Roblox, and Pathfinder Kingmaker. And man, randomizers, what a fantastic thing to breathe life into old games. I love a good randomizer.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Duckfist made a Mega Man 2 randomizer that was, he made it and then hasn't done anything with it in a while, which is totally fine. But like, man, bless him. He did the good work there.
I gotta give Flaming Phoenix a shout out for hooking me up with a code or like an invite to play Deadlocked.
Oh.
And I have not been able, like a beta invite. I have not been able to play it yet, but this week I am going to. And thank you very much because I'm excited to try that out. It was when we recorded the show last week. I was like, "How'd you get into that beta?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll get you an invite," and literally did it right then. So thank you for that.
Thanks for being awesome, Flaming Phoenix.
Absolutely, Mac. Why don't you take us home, my friend?
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out for the first Monday recording of Two Nerds in a Pod. Thank you for coming out for episode 333. Should you be so inclined, of course, you can listen to the show on any podcast platform. Maybe leave a rating if you're so inclined. But if you would like to be a part of the show, try Stump Us with your nerdy trivia questions. You can do so by coming out to twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod at approximately 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central on Mondays from here on forward. But thank you to all of you for either being here, listening after the fact. We love y'all. Remember to be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy.
See ya.